Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Enough is enough, and it's time for a change. We're talking Owen Hart today, which will be a lot of fun. I'm actually surprised. 260 matches in, and we're finally covering this match. I can't believe we haven't covered this one yet.
Yeah, it's really crazy when you think about it. Like, even when I was looking through the list, and it's one of those where, sometimes you got to stop and kind of take a second. You're like, wait, Owen Hart and Steve Austin, like, that was the pile driver. Like, why haven't we covered that? Like, and so, yeah, like it had to do this one. Obviously, SummerSlam, where, SummerSlam behind us at this point now. Some are, creeping away, but yeah, this is one, the never-ending conversation that we were having for the longest time of Cat Dad now, Steve Austin, when he was returning, what would happen. But this was one where this was the turning point for his career in so many ways, and so negatively. But it had to cover this one.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into this one. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right. It's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So SummerSlam 1997, and Jeff, it's interesting because next week we're going to cover, I think it's next week, 1994, and it's just, I always enjoy looking year by year at some of these cards, and you just see the difference in the talent and the booking and where things are going. But it's just crazy. And in 94, a brutal card. 95, 96, we're making strides, but man, what a difference a few years make in terms of this. And this is when things were really turning around. It's interesting. I just heard, I think it was Bruce Pritchard recently say, 97, obviously the booking was good. We were still getting our asses kicked by WCW in the ratings, but the attendance was turning around. So it's this like groundswell of where, hey, people are coming to the live events. They enjoy what they're seeing. They're buying merchandise, so it just took time, but they were already at this point seeing, the gates going up, the merch going up, the numbers going up. And this show had 20,000 people there, sold out in Jersey. So, again, even though they were losing to WCW in the ratings, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but it again, one company, WCW, was a TV company. The other company was a live event company, a pay-per-view company. So just interesting. It's funny how for 30 years now, we've kind of missed the point. I think that's part of what the Who Killed WCW documentary has done a really good job with is, hey, everyone was looking at ratings, but that's really not the right way to look at things. So 97, we're humming, we're in Jersey, 20,000 in attendance. And let's quickly go through this card. Mankind, Triple H, in a steel cage. And again, another recent Bruce Pritchard episode was, kind of the making of Mankind. But this was that little stretch here where we're doing the Mankind Jim Ross interview, and hey, there's more to this guy, and there's a Dude Love, and there's a Mick Foley, and he wanted to be a wrestler growing up. So Mankind's becoming a baby face and kicking off what I think is one of the most underrated feuds ever of Mankind and Triple H. But Mankind's going to do the kind of elbow drop off the top of the cage, similar to Jimmy Snuka. Gold Dust is going to defeat Brian Pillman in 7 minutes. Legion of Doom is going to defeat the Godwins in 9 minutes. British Bulldog is going to defeat Ken Shamrock by DQ for the European Championship. He'll retain that. Los Boricuas are going to defeat the Disciples of Apocalypse in an 8-man tag match in 9 minutes. And then the last 2 matches, the reason we're here, Stone Cold and Owen, which we're going to cover. And then our main event, Bret Hart is going to defeat The Undertaker to win the WWF Championship. Shawn Michaels is going to play a part in that. He doesn't want Bret to win. Then we're going to be off to Undertaker, Shawn Michaels in Hell in a Cell. And before you know it, Montreal Screwjob. And what a wild time. We're going to talk more about that because I have a couple of things I want to bring up. But that's it, man. A lot of talent on this show. Really good show. Obviously, famous for the reasons we're going to get into. Stone Cold and Owen. It was a super hot feud. We've got the whole Hart Foundation, Canada, US thing going on. Austin is white hot. How did we get to this match?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like you said, the names on this card you would have thought would have been a lot better, but when you look at the overall rankings of how these matches went, like themselves, like nothing was, even the main event, nothing was above 3 stars on this one. But it was interesting. But like you said, there was a lot happening around this match. There was a ton of build to it on the big stage and kind of what was happening. It was short, but there was still a lot happening. So this match taking place August 3rd, 1997. We're going to go 1 month earlier, though, to July. You had the Canadian Stampede show. You had Owen pinning Austin in that 5-on-5 match, as we all know. Then the day after, you had Austin attacking Owen when they were having their kind of celebration. And then you also had that same night that Austin told Vince that if he did not win the title from Owen at SummerSlam, that he would kiss Owen's ass. And so this was that kind of era where the ass kissing was a big part of the show. So following that next week, you actually, it kind of weird how you talked a little bit about Mick Foley, Mankind. He actually had Austin teaming with Dude Love. They won the vacant tag titles, beating Owen and the British Bulldog on this one. So kind of, interesting that just a couple weeks before this match, you've got him beating him for the tag titles, which was weird. They were vacant at the time, but kind of getting that. So then there was a flag match where Austin's team beat Owen's team, kind of leading up to this. So every week they were having different matches and things were happening. But then you had just Austin and Dude Love defending their tag titles. Owen getting involved in that match as well too. Then you had it just both all night long, the two were just kind of going back and forth with each other. And so really the biggest names at the time at this point, like you could have almost there could have been an argument to flip this to the main event over Bret and The Undertaker, but you had Shawn as the guest ref, and there was a lot of stipulations there, so I get why it wasn't. But just a lot happening around this one, and like I said, really changed the landscape of everything before we knew it by the time this match was over.
This was fun. This was a really good one. I'm looking forward to this. And it's kind of crazy because one of the things I didn't even thought about is this is going to be Steve Austin's last match pre-neck injury.
Yeah.
Was his style the same? Did it change? That'll be fun to watch as well. But hot crowd, hot match. Hard to believe nothing on this show is above 3 stars, but
yeah.
It's also hard to believe Kurt Angle has never done a 5-star match. So there's a lot of things in that system that are hard to believe.
Yeah. So
you ready to cover this one?
Yeah, let's do this, man. I'm ready. It's been a while since I have not watched the whole match in a long time. And so, of course, you always see the clip of kind of the pile driver, but yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So 1 hour, 42 minute mark, 1 hour, yes. 42 minute mark, season 10, episode 1, SummerSlam 1997. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right, Austin with authority coming down to the ring.
Dripping wet,
mean mugging the camera, place going absolutely crazy. Look at all the Attitude Era signs that are there.
So Sean signs or Stone Cold signs everywhere. Sean signs too. Only one knee brace. Always weird to see. You can always kind of tell when the timeline is because of that too.
Hey, tell me if you can hear my sound.
I can, yeah. They obviously Peacock changed, yeah.
Isn't that funny how that worked? That was all the Peacock settings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been something with Zoom too, but that's kind of funny. So, all right, we have sound. We'll play sound. Fast start. Owen, the dastardly heel, going right after Austin's knee. At this point, he's wearing one knee brace on his left knee.
Hasn't even taken. There he goes, taking the vest off finally. Yep.
Hebner's your ref. Austin selling the knee injury. An interesting question came up. Conrad made a prediction somewhere. I can't remember which show it was on, but he's like, hey, by the end of the year, Vince McMahon's going to start his own wrestling promotion. Now, my initial thought was that's absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd because of his age. It's absurd because of the, the lack of available talent, et cetera, et cetera. But then I got to thinking, Jeff, certainly unlimited money. Okay, so that's not an issue. I mean, if he wanted to start something, unlimited money. Kevin Dunn's available. Other people that he has previously worked with are available. So it wouldn't be hard to get the band back together of former WWE, WWF executives. And there's always talent looking for work. There's always, Gerald Briscoe come back and book, right? I mean, you start picking out these people that you're like, well, they're available and they did this for decades. So, from a money standpoint, from a production standpoint, from a, office talent, writing, booking standpoint, none of that stuff would be difficult. So then it comes down to talent. Now, I thought about it, and 3 names that are actually available and love Vince McMahon and for the right amount of money probably would say, sure, what the hell? Goldberg, Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
So all of a sudden you go, huh. Now, I personally don't think it'll happen, but as you start talking through it, you go, it's not as crazy of a notion as you may think.
So I had a similar thought not that long ago. And I was like, I wonder what Vince is doing. Like it just, kind of, curious kind of what was out there, kind of, what he might be doing or what's happening or something like that. And like, I don't know if it will necessarily be like another promotion, but I don't think we have seen the last of him. Like I find that really hard to believe.
It's actually almost impossible to believe that if he's going to live another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, that he's just gone.
Well, and I don't know. I'm sure you've seen he's 78 as of record, or no, he's about to turn 79 actually.
Okay.
Shortly here in about a couple weeks, August 24th, and so he will be 79. You figure even if he lives till 90, I know he hired that PR firm that is, deals with these types of situations, where somebody, bad press, and all that. And so, yeah, so I don't know if it'll be that. Like, I don't know if he could pull enough talent. I don't know. It's hard to say how many people would trust him enough to work for him. But, like you said, it's just hard. I guess that's the ultimate work is we will always believe in some way that Vince McMahon will be involved in the wrestling industry. Like whether it's some weird TV deal or something, like it's just really hard to say what's going to happen. But I don't know.
Well, and also, now the rumor is he's quote unquote estranged from his family. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that, the wife and kids aren't talking to him? Does it mean that, hey, one of the kids won't talk to him, but the other will, or him and Linda are split? I mean, who knows? But I also, and tell me what you think of this lawsuit. My guess is who knows? You have the feds involved now. Who knows what happens?
Yeah.
If it goes away, however it's settled, through money, through whatever, okay? Are they really going to keep him out of the company forever? Or at some point, does Endeavor, Nick Khan, Triple H say, hey, you're always welcome, come back in? And so that's another thing to look at too. Is like, is he really kicked out, or is he just not physically in the building? Nothing would surprise me. I mean, if him and Bruce Pritchard were talking about booking every single day, would that surprise you? Well, no, it wouldn't surprise you, right? Like, I mean, who the hell knows anymore what he is or is not doing and what's being said publicly versus privately? Is he really gone? I understand he physically isn't there, but is he still talking through booking? Does he still have a relationship with the talent? Is Triple H still talking to him? Is Bruce Pritchard still talking to him? And I don't know. I mean, maybe the TKO UFC folks are like, look, keep that guy out of this building. We're done with him. You don't speak of him. We're not going to risk it. Who the hell knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good match so far too. These guys
really good match. I mean, they are
fast paced. Austin looks crisp as hell. Like, it's crazy. They're inside the ring, they're outside the ring. Owen trying to leave now, call a timeout.
So there you go.
Yep. So Austin running after him now. Yep. So like I said, that's the eternal work. We'll just never know what's going to happen until the day he dies, and even then, are we getting worked? What was it? Not that long ago, I said it was the anniversary of the limo exploding. It's just one of those things where who knows what's going to happen and what's going to play out. I don't know how the fans would take to it either. Like, that's the other thing is, part of me thinks like, we have a short memory on some of this stuff. This is, a little bit more egregious what he did outside of the ring, potentially, allegedly. But I think that it's one of those where fans might latch onto it. Like, I could almost see, like, does a Jericho like jump ship and come back? I'm with you on Brock. I wonder, like, are too many of the wrestlers that would want to work with him too old? Like, Undertaker can't be on a weekly show. Like, that's just not a thing.
But you just never know. I mean, if he created something that was, 4 big shows a year that was on, and wouldn't be Netflix but Amazon, or super shows, and you got the right talent, and I mean, who the hell knows? It'll be interesting. I also found, speaking of Austin, I mean, it's pretty wild that him and Rock legitimately have major heat. Like, I find that to be very interesting that, with Rock now in a very prominent position, sometimes on camera and certainly behind the scenes as a board member, it seems like Austin just wants nothing to do with the company right now, at least not on air on any type of regularity. I mean, I'd assume that he just did not want to be part of the Rock's WrestleMania, if you will. Even if it was to come in and stun him. I mean, obviously that was the first choice, and that was the Austin spot. Another interesting thing is, Undertaker basically, I mean, it sounded like they were last minute on Undertaker for sure. Yeah. I mean, as of like the day before, like, hey, you want to do this? They had talked a little bit prior. My guess is that entire week they were trying to get Austin, and he just, whether it was money or creative or whatever, he just didn't want to come and do it, which, I mean, sucks, because I'm a firm believer that if the glass broke in that Undertaker spot, it would have been the greatest match in the history of WrestleMania. That's how close I think it was. I think it was great. I just think, yeah, I think if you put Austin, the two things I said, one would be Austin in the Taker spot. The other thing, and I know this wouldn't happen, but if the Rollins spot was Rollins and Moxley both, like those are the two things that I actually think could have made that the perfect best match in the history of WrestleMania. And you could argue the best match in the history of professional wrestling. Like that's how close I think it was.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because now, and I don't know how much, I think I've said it to you a little bit, like Austin seems perfectly content just being a cat dad on the farm. Like it's weird as hell to see, like who would have thought that, but posting photos of the cats and him just drinking beer, like in the back of the truck. Like it's crazy to think about. And then on the flip side, you've got The Rock who, probably trying to reinvigorate the movie career. Like, he's got all this behind the scenes stuff that he's doing. Like, it's just, so, on the board on some of these types of things. Like, I think we all know eventually like that, we'll get that WrestleMania match with him and Roman or the Bloodlines or however they're going to present it. But yeah, it's really weird. Just kind of how that has all played out. It's, especially like Austin, like I'm like you said at the start of the match, I've been watching just kind of how he looks, like kind of moving, like he's rolling through pins. He is like, he is bouncing all over the place. Like he looks really good.
Oh, people forget not that he was a bad worker after the neck injury. People forget how good he was in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're getting getting close to it here, I think. So,
you and I obviously both watched the Who Killed WCW documentaries, and
yes,
Bret Hart's very prominently featured. Keep in mind that this was, and it may have been a few weeks after this, but this is really the timeline where Vince goes to Bret and says, "I can't pay you. I don't have the money to honor that 10 or 20 I think it was 20-year contract that he had signed." So. Again, it's 2020 hindsight, but I will say, I certainly feel bad for Bret that he was injured. What happened to Owen happened. But at the same time, I think the thing that's frustrating with Bret is there's never any personal responsibility. So if you knew how bad WCW was and you knew that they weren't going to book you appropriately, which Vince said WCW wouldn't know what to do with a Bret Hart, which he was absolutely right.
Yep.
And so if Bret is so smart and he knew WCW would ruin him, then why take the money?
Don't go. Yeah.
Because what you could have said is, hey, Vince, we got 20,000 at SummerSlam. Austin's getting red hot. We're going to take over WCW at some point. So how about I make you a deal? Pay me less through WrestleMania. But if WrestleMania 14 is a success, then you'll make it up to me on the back end. And we have a handshake deal because, I trust you. I trust that we're going to turn things around. I care about my legacy. It's not all about the money. And he could have stayed. And here's what would have happened, right? So Bret would have been champion going into WrestleMania. Bret would have faced Austin. Tyson would have been the special guest endorser. So whatever you think of that Tyson involvement in WrestleMania 14, understand that Bret Austin was a far bigger match than Shawn Austin.
Yep.
Exponentially bigger. So
at the time, yeah.
So the box office for WrestleMania 14 would have been greater. And then keep in mind what happens after Austin beats Bret. You go back to that for the next 6 months. And potentially SummerSlam's a Hell in a Cell match. But you still would have had the Hart Foundation, Austin thing, even if you got rid of the McMahon heel turn. So the amount of money they would have made in 98 with Bret Austin and Owen and Bulldog and all these different things, the Hart Foundation trying to screw Austin for the next 12 months, it would have been massive. And maybe there's a Hart Foundation Nation of Domination thing in there. So if Brett would have stayed, he would have made all that money back. And he actually would have ended up making more money. Oh, is this the, here you go.
Here we go. Yep. Oh God, you could see it too.
It's just horrible. But you understand that if Brett would have stayed, Brett would have made more money, theoretically wouldn't have gotten kicked in the head by Goldberg. He wouldn't have had his legacy ruined. And think of the 1999, 2000, 2001 matches. You have Benoit, you have Edge, you have more Austin matches, potentially a returning Shawn Michaels from injury, Triple H, Mick Foley. I mean, it just goes on, but it's just Undertaker some more, Kurt Angle. I mean, what could have happened? So at some point, it would be nice for Brett to have said, in hindsight, I should have taken a significant pay cut and I would have made all that money back, and my life and personal and professional career would have been a hell of a lot better. Then the other thing with Brett is, if you knew Goldberg was so unsafe, then why didn't you say, look, I'm not working with the guy. In my late 30s. I don't want the guy to hurt me. I'm not going to wrestle him. Or if you want me to wrestle him, it's going to be 30 seconds. He's going to spear me. He's going to jackhammer me. And that's going to be it. But Brett didn't do that. And then Brett worked another 7 or 9 matches after that injury. So at some point, Brett needs to accept some responsibility. So we just got the end of this thing. Everyone's seen it a million times. You know what happened. He gets dropped on his head. He does the roll up.
The worst roll up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in hindsight, probably shouldn't have done the roll up. We should have just called the match. I think part of the problem was, did Austin have to kiss Owen's ass if he lost?
Yes, if he lost, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a small miracle that he's moving right now. Like, Hebner's got him sitting up. He shouldn't even be doing that. Like, yeah. And so,
I mean, he's folded over.
Austin is writhing in pain.
The thing is, he looks
He is tough.
better than he is. I mean, it's just because he's such a tough son of a bitch, but he looks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the football injury where, they put them on the gurney or whatever. And he's up. So you're looking at him going, oh, he's got a little bit of a stinger, no big deal.
It was just selling, you would thought. But yeah, he can, yeah.
I mean, he's holding the title up. It's just pretty.
But the fans
wild.
have very little clue, yeah, what's happening. Yep.
He can barely stand.
Wow.
Yeah, he's feeling it.
I would imagine in today's safety protocols, there is no way that a ref would pull him up to sitting position and 3 refs would carry him out.
And knowing what we know now, that they would have had the X up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there would have been medical. It's just crazy. There's no medical staff there, huh?
There is, but oh God, I hate it how you can just see, like, you could see his head popping out a little bit there. Yeah. So, and he made the call like immediately, like, don't touch me. Yeah. Just that roll up finally got him in there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just that roll up was so bad. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. So that's it. Let's get to the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
All right, what'd you think?
It's just so unfortunate. Like, the match was way better than I remembered. It was really good.
Yep.
It's unfortunate that, kind of, we all know though, what has, since transpired because of that, from the botch pile driver at this point. And this was, when WCW was beating him, there was so much in play here. Like, Hart was, both of them were hot. Austin was hot as hell too on some of this. And so, excuse me. This one, it says in Austin's autobiography, Austin revealed that he and Hart were planning on the spots in the match when Austin suggested to Hart about performing a pile driver as a false finish, under the condition that it was a knee drop tombstone pile driver used by the Undertaker as opposed to the more common variant of landing on his butt. Hart said that he was more comfortable performing the latter variant, but assured Austin they would not hurt him. Coming off a critically acclaimed feud with Hart's brother Brett, Austin obliged. At the planned spot, Hart wasn't able to protect Austin's head, leading to Austin to break his neck and temporarily suffer paralysis. Austin informed referee Earl Hebner that he could not move and that Hart should not touch him. Once Hebner informed Hart, he started buying time for Austin to recover by taunting the crowd that Austin was about to kiss his ass per the match stipulation, until Austin had recovered enough to perform the worst roll-up ever to end the match early, and with the scheduled finish of Austin winning the Intercontinental Championship. Yeah, and so again, like we said, this was in the middle of the 83 weeks and everything that was happening there, and so written off television and retiring like that. That's what it boiled down to, and so since then we know that he said that he doesn't have any pain anymore. Surgery advancements and medical technology is a lot better, but he said that they weren't ever able really to discuss the incident, which was a big part of Austin feeling bad about everything that had happened on this one. And so he said he came to peace with it, but the two of them were just never able to discuss it before Owen dying. And so finally they did, and we see it. I don't remember the last time, but that move has been banned since 2000. I don't remember the last time we've seen anybody do a kind of sit out pile driver. Even pile drivers as a whole are rare. So yeah, just kind of yeah.
Well, I was just saying, but if you were supposed to do the Undertaker pile driver, why would you be doing the Undertaker's move? So that would piss him off too. If you just and then it exposes so right before the Undertaker is going to go out there, you're going to do his finishing move as a false finish. And see, that's where, and I know it's AEW is so cool because the wrestlers can do whatever they want. But that's what happens when wrestlers can do whatever they want. Because, and remember, back in the day, they didn't have a really experienced agent that would be sitting with Austin and Owen. Because what a Michael Hayes would say is, time out, way too dangerous, and you're not going to expose our main event wrestler's finishing move. Yeah. The match before he goes out there. So, kibosh on that. Just like an agent would say, hey, Adam, you're not going to jump off the top of the cage and land on your feet. Do a splash because it'll be way safer. Or you're not jumping off the cage at all. But see, that's where having adults prevents injuries. And I know that's not fun. It's more fun to say, oh, we should let wrestlers say whatever they want, do whatever they want, perform whatever moves they want. No, you need adults in the room. It's the same reason why people get hurt. It's the same reason why wrestlers go on with a microphone and say something that doesn't make any logical sense and doesn't sell any tickets. But hey, a couple thousand people on Twitter think it's really interesting. You're not going to grow your audience, AEW, by talking insider baseball that a percentage of wrestling fans on Twitter actually understand.
Right.
So an agent says, no, that's not what you're going to say. Here are your bullet points. So I know it's performers don't want scripts. I get it. But if we're trying to grow a company, we script these things. We have long-term storylines. We make sure guys don't get hurt.
Yeah, at that point, I get it, Austin trusting him. I get it, everybody else, who knows the behind the scenes of, how much of it, they ran by Bruce or Vince or Pepe, any of those guys. It's hard to say, but yeah, at this point too. So getting into the reviews and kind of, what the write-ups were on this one. PWI Austin was 3 in 1997, and then Owen was 16. The torch on this one, Let's see. The ref, that ended the match as Austin suffered a legit injury in the move. He didn't budge. The ref checked on Austin and Owen stalled. Owen staggered backward close enough where Austin, who legitimately could barely move and probably shouldn't have even been trying, rolled up Owen for a 3 count, a weak looking finish and perhaps dangerous to execute. No fault of the wrestlers, but the sudden end hurt the match. It was on the way to being a very good match, but had not yet become a lock for the match of the year candidate. 3 stars on this one. Just a lot of different stuff, a lot of different kind of write-ups on this one and kind of how it played out. In the locker room, Austin didn't want to sit still and was quite shaken. He called the 20 seconds where he couldn't feel his legs or arms the scariest moments of his life. He thought his career was over and that he was paralyzed. He had suffered another neck injury on Raw when Michaels kicked him, causing Austin to have sharp pain. At this point, doctors evaluated him and said he was susceptible to more serious neck injuries in the future. I mean, you get dropped on your neck like a pile driver, it's going to happen. He was taken to a local hospital, underwent a test, came back negative. It was released from the hospital early AM hours. At that point, he was still feeling pins and needles in his shoulder and his back. Owen was shaken by the incident. It was clear as he came out to celebrate Brett's title victory later that night that a smile was hard to come by. Austin, though, told Owen it wasn't his fault. Austin was the one who had called for the pile driver during the match. Again, and the same thing, like Observer newsletter on this one too. Kind of, they gave it 2 3/4 on this one. Again, just
I don't know, man. That was a pretty good match.
Yeah, before all this happened, you can't do it just on the kind of ending here. Austin appeared at Raw the next night, but wasn't walking well. It was activity limited to doing an interview and interfering in the Dude Love versus Owen Hart main event by hitting Hart with a Slammy Award. It just like the next night though, he's out there wrestling again, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So yeah, 3 stars, 2 3/4 stars. This one's hard to judge.
Yeah,
just solely based on that. But what are you thinking?
Man, it's almost impossible to actually put a score to this one. I'll give it a 6. The match was pretty good. Obviously, the finish sucked, but understand why it sucked. I just don't believe that the idea of hitting a tombstone pile driver makes no sense. The idea of doing a more dangerous version of it where I almost don't know how you do it safely just based on the way he was holding him and how the neck would go down. But again, easy for us to say all these years later. So yeah, that's my score. I think it was what it was. At the end of the day, that botch made Austin a lot of money probably. He was already hot, yeah. But if you remember the ensuing months, it went nuts because that's where he was stunning people and coming into these massive pops because he couldn't work. So he was still disrupting. They kept him on TV. The folklore only grew. The big baby face became arguably the biggest or second biggest baby face in history. And it probably happens regardless, but it certainly didn't hurt that he comes back from an injury like that. It made it's like you couldn't boo the guy. I mean, like there is no other guy. I mean, is there one other person like in the history of wrestling at that level where nobody booed him? People booed Cena. Yeah. There's people that are sick of Cody's shit. There's people that were booing Hogan his last few years as a babyface. You just couldn't boo Austin. And I think this is part of that folklore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to give it. I'm right there with you. I'm going to do a 5.5. It is crazy, like the whole thing. Like it's sad, but then you got to wonder. Like there is a lot of what if that came from this as well too. And so, but I think overall, just really the match itself though, like if you take it from up to the moment of the pile driver, like the match was like an 8. Like it was really good. Like they were working hard. There was a lot happening, and so that was good to see. But yeah, just just sad, unfortunate how it all kind of played out for everybody. Owen, of course, eventually passing away too. So just wrestling crazy, but okay. On that, switching gears, of course, don't forget about our sponsor, Manscaped. 20% off using that promo code PAYOFF. I said a friend not that long ago who said, he's like, yeah, I forget what it was. He's like, but he needed something. And I was like, hey, promo code payoff. And he's like, wait, really? I was like, yeah, dude, 20% off everything in the cart, manscaped.com. Whatever you need, it's there. And so make sure to check that out. So that was good. But yeah, other than that, what do we got next week? Another SummerSlam, like you said, keeping it in the SummerSlam shows. So yeah.
Well, we'll have fun. I'm looking forward to next week. Great episode. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Payoff.